news yet, but they love to sneak surprise. They'll blame it on the news, it's lies. We'll say you can't trust history yet. They're all here to aid and abet. I'm not afraid at all. They're not gonna take what's in us. They think they got us all. You're not gonna change what's in us. Snakes are chasing off their tails as leeches are increasing cells. It's hard to tell who loves for real when everything's about the deal. I know that some have open eyes. I cannot hate false lies, but ask yourself now, who do you follow? But who do they follow? We're not afraid at all. They're not gonna take what's in us. We're gonna make the call. They don't know what's still left in us. We're gonna see it all. They're not gonna break what's in us. I gotta laugh, that's all. They can never shake what's in us. They come into your space and look all too familiar. They do not give you reason to share or better ways which to compare. There's only so many places that you can still be free. They don't want you to know your head. The microchip's not ready yet. I'm not afraid at all. We're gonna make the call. I might have seen it all. They're not gonna change what's in us. They think they got us all. They're not gonna shake what's in us. I gotta laugh, that's all.
Hello and welcome everyone to the 81st official episode of Unit Corner Club Live. That was the wonderful song, What's in Us by Jared George of the Great Order. And I haven't played that for a while, but I love it. And the reason I chose to preface this stream today with that song is we are going to be talking to a great man who's been on here before. And there has been an evolution, an addition, an improvement upon his already great work, The School of the West. And of course, we'll be talking to Brant Danger. I know that's why you guys are here, not just to listen to my voice, but to hear the great things that he's been working on. Now, at the beginning, of course, you saw the monthly subscribers of mine over on Subscribestar. During the course of the stream today, if you would like to financially support me in the work that I do, you can do so in many ways. You can drop something short on PayPal or Cash App. You can leave a lengthy comment with a few dollars over on Entropy. If you subscribe on Subscribestar, you, of course, can leave a tip on Subscribestar. I will be checking all the usual locations. And, of course, you can send paid chats over on Rumble and Odyssey via rants and hyper chats, respectively, over there. At the end of the stream, we only have Brant for about an hour today. And at the end of the hour, we will be looking at your community engagement to see if you have any questions for him. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take this down and bring on my guest for the day, Brant Danger. Brant, thank you for being here today. Hopefully your mic is working fine now.
Is it working? Can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear, brother. Sounds good. Glad you're here. So welcome back. It's been quite a while since you've been on the Corner Club, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a couple of years, I think.
I think so too. It's been about 2 years, yeah. And the thing that you wanted to talk about today was a big addition, an improvement over the School of the West that you have added in the recent months. Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. Should I go ahead and start rambling about it now?
I think what we should do is we're going to have people that have gathered here that are not familiar with the original stream. So if you could take a few minutes and tell people what School of the West is and why it is, then we can move in to the bulk of the stream today, which is talking about the Elite series.
Okay. What if I send you the link for the main page there?
Sure, we can
That
go
might
ahead and pull that up.
make
Yeah,
sense to people.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll go
So,
ahead and pull that up while you start talking about it here.
all right. So people who don't know me, been involved in public education since 2006, and about 4 years ago, one of my teaching jobs in a specific district, I became aware of the increasing anti-white material that was creeping into what was taught to kids, and I was teaching elementary at that time.
Hmm.
And besides the material, it's either implicit or explicit that the kids are faced with. There's also explicit teacher training, which is anti-white, and the NEA, which is the National Educators Association, the main teachers union, is extremely anti-white, is just insanely nuts. And I saw all of these things going wrong, and it kind of snuck up on me because I really wasn't paying attention to it in the past. And it's almost like you wake up one time and you think, wait a second, there's a whole bunch of crap going wrong right now, and it needs to get corrected. And I thought, I need to get out of this district. I need to go. I need to teach someplace else where they teach what I consider to be the correct material, like mostly when I was a little kid. And I
And of
thought,
course,
well,
no
yeah,
matter
go ahead.
what race of person you're talking about, it's never healthy to teach kids to hate themselves. It's not good.
No, not to hate themselves, nor to hate the other kids in class because they're
Right.
a different race from you, or this
Hmm.
nonsense that's going on. Plus,
Hmm.
also, maybe people may not understand this. The public education system in the United States is extremely feminized. When I was a kid, it was more masculinized,
Yeah.
even though I was taught by female teachers throughout elementary school. And just like the same way Western civilization has been for thousands of years,
Hmm.
it's masculinized. The the priorities that Western civilization used to have was based upon what would be important to a man, what would be important to building a civilization, a structure, a team, an organization for the long haul. And that's the way our public education was set up.
Hmm.
And as we all know, changes had started taking place since World War I, World War II, immigration
Hmm.
from Eastern Europe, which the people we will not name who they are, and
Indeed.
uh,
Indeed.
yeah, all of these people
Our
as
greatest ally, so to
yeah,
speak.
our greatest allies, by far the greatest. I thank God for them every night.
But please go on.
They started sneaking these changes in every single facet, and one of the main vectors of attack was the public teaching schools at universities, and this is where the teachers are trained, and
Mhm.
then you get a public teaching job. So I knew that there was this huge feminization of what was going on in public education, and when I say that, I need to delineate from the masculine there. It's that this desire of women, and I think Jason Kuna has pointed this out several times. He's done it quite well. They want to
Yeah.
take care of little kids. If there's
Right.
one little kid who he doesn't, his cookie isn't as big as another kid's cookie, then you want to be nice to the little kid. But what's happened over time is this feminization has evolved into you want to take the cookie away from the big kid and beat the crap out of him and make him feel terrible and abuse him and then give the cookie to the little kid. And this,
And that's not healthy.
no, so there's lots of other factors. We could all go down a rabbit hole and talk for a long time about this, but this is what has been taking place uh, inside of public education. And the big kid that gets picked on is white people.
And you
And
noticed that because you worked professionally in public education before. You said you were teaching elementary school before you left, correct?
yeah, and I've taught all the grades from 4-year-olds up into university level. 60-year-olds in university that were getting retrained because their
Mhm.
jobs got closed down. But
So
my
you've been an
primary
educator for most of your career, right? Like you
well,
how many years do you have in this? Like a decade or two or
Uh,
more?
for public education, I'd say about 11,
Okay.
because I switched back. back and forth between education and doing some like programming, webmaster work, that sort of stuff, because I had been involved in that before I went into education. And so there was a couple times where I took a 1 or 2 year break from education, did some programming work, and then went back into education. But
Okay.
I've been back into it solidly for 7 years now, and I'm still involved with it. I won't say how, but I'm still involved with it, and that's going to be the focus for the rest of my life, whether I'm just exclusively involved with School of the West, or I'm with the school and also involved in public education school districts. So
Gotcha.
getting back to what I was saying is, I
Hmm.
realized that there's all this anti-whiteism and this extreme feminism, and part of the extreme feminism is that almost all of the training that you get as a teacher is done by women, and it's all done from the female point of view.
Hmm.
And all of the new policies that are put in place at the state levels are feminized. They're all done from their perspective, and
Hmm.
it's always to help some non-white group, or
Yeah.
some non-white ethnicity, or some white religion, if you want to call it that. It's always something,
Right.
and it's always more and more and more, and it's never enough. So when I realized what was going on, I figured that, look, if I could have my own school and teach my own curriculum, what would I teach, first of all? And then I realized, oh, that probably doesn't exist. I looked for some school districts, and it wasn't out there. So I thought, well, what's the next best thing is to create something online that parents can start to use, whether or not their kids are in public education, or specifically, or more importantly, if their kids are being homeschooled.
Hmm.
And so that's where I got the idea. I was talking to Jason Kuna about that.
Hmm.
People watch his shows, and then you get like Jubilation Media right here.
Yeah, I see him in the
Um,
chat. Yeah. Hey, Jubilation Media.
what is the purpose of education? Okay, so the purpose of education, well, that depends upon what you're talking about. If we're talking about public education in the United States, it's two things. One of them is to train a workforce to a certain level of competence with some basic math skills, some basic reading, some basic writing, people that can take orders, put them into a cash register, etc. Unfortunately, also what's going on right now is they want the population to be indoctrinated. So in the same way that baby boomers sit down and watch the news every night and believe everything that the broadcaster says, little kids are forced into this predicament where they have no choice. They naturally trust adults, and they're going to believe everything that the teachers tell them. So they're getting indoctrinated at a fast pace. It's like the
Yeah.
indoctrination is coming out of a fire hydrant,
Yeah.
and so they're
It's
getting blasted.
unrelenting in public schools.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they're getting blasted with that. So uh, it's horrible. But I am not the czar of the United States, so I can't turn that around. So
Right.
like I was saying, like what vector can I take? Who are the people that I can work with? What tiny bit of skills did I have in the background where I could start putting something together? And then School of the West naturally sprang out of that. And it took 7 or 8 months of just working in the background until there was enough there to even go live. And then things have been slowly added to it. I've taught some classes either with small groups of kids, or some kids one-on-one when I'm contacted by homeschooling parents, and
Hmm.
we just set that up at the at their leisure, where it works out for everyone,
Hmm.
and they let me know what type of material they want the kids to learn about. So sometimes what I do is I've taught elementary kids basic ELA skills, which is English Language Arts and
Hmm.
math, and then sometimes what I've taught is my own version of the White Wellbeing course,
Hmm.
which includes a huge portion of Jason Kuna's work in the dialectic of go free, of uh, overcoming the anti-whiteism,
Hmm.
and framing
Yeah,
the
we talk
narrative.
about that book and that method on my channel a lot. My viewers will probably all be familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay, I would think so. So uh, that's a main part of what I was doing. Plus, as people come to me and they have specific skills and things they want to do, and it fits into what I believe our kids need, either our youth, teenagers, sometimes things are at the university level or for adults. And I put that on the site as well. Some
Okay.
things are just entertainment, some things are extremely technical, some things don't delve into psychology at all. It's just like, here's some engineering, here's trigonometry, here's calculus. But anytime material is presented that has to do with society or history or anything like that, then myself and the guys and the women that work on that, we always make sure that we set up the context for the students so that they understand what they're seeing.
That's
Such
good.
as with the video that one of our guys did about heredity and DNA. I talked about that on Jason's show last week.
Hmm.
The author makes sure to point out that here's the science on this, but here's what you're going to hear if you read from a textbook,
Mm.
and here's how it's a lie, and here's the proof, and you're being shown this, dear child or teenager, because this anti-white narrative is running throughout the mainstream material that you're going to see. So what the School of the West does is it gets there first underneath all the bullshit
Hmm.
so that the kids can see the truth. And one of the things that I repeat to the kids is that, look, you are going to be responsible for what you believe as you grow up. You can look at everything that I say or anything else that we say on this website, and then you can look at things that are always going to contradict that. You're going to have to decide, how do you think critically? How do you look up this information on your own? And how do you come to your own conclusion on what is true and what is not true?
Yeah.
Because ultimately that comes down to you. But what I want to do is give you some beginning skills to where you can do that with. Because
Because
if,
Lord knows in
yeah,
public education, they don't want people to critically think about any of the stuff they give them.
right. And that was something that really burned my ass in school as a teacher, because you you hear people talk about our kids need to think critically, and sometimes you'll hear people in administration, yeah, we want critical thinking. That's absolute bullshit. They that's the last thing that most administrations, and especially people at the state level and the federal level, want. They do not want critical thinkers, because critical thinkers can be dangerous to the system. It can be
Right.
dangerous to the people who are in power. The people who are in power want to remain in power because they're selfish shitheads and they enjoy their power. They're not there
And
to
are
help
oftentimes just
society.
straight up evil.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, I don't know how we would describe these people. I used to have lots of names that I gave them. Now they're just these shadowy figures that are in the background, and at some point down the future, if they're forced to face reality and justice, then I would like to be involved in that. But that's
You
not
and me
my
both.
Yeah, right. They certainly deserve it, but right now what I try to do is just stay positive and just try to focus on what
Hmm.
I can.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it's important for people listening to, especially those of you who are considering being parents or might be parents to young children now. One of the things that we have to do is take our destiny into our own hands, because our culture has been absolutely riddled with all kinds of isms, corporatisms and feminisms and anti-whiteisms and LGBT-isms and all of these things, all of these elements of modern culture. They don't have the well-being of you, your race, your ethnicity, your family, or your community in mind. They care about profit, they care about narrative and propaganda control, and they care about turning anyone and everyone that they can into a loyal drone for whatever their dark god is. So the way that we can fight back and take our destiny into our own hands is with better education, private education, and creating communities and families and things around not necessarily just wholesome traditional values, but around the truth itself. And like Brant started off with today, education used to be a much different animal than it has become in our lifetimes. It used to be structured differently. There was a different ethos behind it. And Brant here is doing what he can to take his destiny into his own hands and share the fruits of his labor with as many people who are willing to do the same. And so that's one of the reasons I really love and respect Brant's work, is he is doing something positive, constructive, and creative for not just himself and his family, but for anyone else who will take this up and practice it with their families as well. That's one of the reasons I respect Jason Kuna and his Go Free method, because he's doing the same thing in a different venue.
Well said.
So now that you've given people a preface as to what School of the West is about what brought you here, um, the reason we're having a stream about this today is you've been working on something new called the Elite Series. Now, the Elite Series, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but why don't you tell people about this new collection of material and why it's important and why we're talking about it today?
Okay, let me give you that link too, Yiz, so we
Certainly.
can get the right page on there. So any of these links that I send Yiz that she's putting up, you can get to that from the home page. If you just scroll down from this page that you see right here, you can get to everything. And these things that I'm talking about today, are these videos, it's in the white well-being section. So what the Elite Series what it is, sprang from what I was doing in the past couple of years when I decided to teach a white well-being class. So I was doing a white well-being series for youth, and then I was doing a separate one for teenagers, because it's much different material that you need to present to both of those. For the youth, it was just, here's some history of some European countries, here's their language, here's their culture, here's all the countries that we have founded around the planet. And here's a little bit of history about how it got founded. So it's a sense of identity. Now,
Mm-hmm.
for the teenagers, it's much more uh, up-to-date topics, some kind of hot button topics. It delves into propaganda. It starts off with understanding propaganda, and it
Mm-hmm.
goes into government corruption, and it goes into politics. And then specifically, I went into meme pathogens and meme curatives, so
Mm-hmm.
people can understand the anti-white narrative, and then how
Mm-hmm.
do you deal with that.
Very good.
And what I wanted to do is, I thought, wait a second, instead of just doing this material so a few tiny amount of people see this, it needs to be on the website so as many people have access to it as possible. And I thought, okay, I'm going to take these things that I did in streams, and I'm going to put them into little lessons, and I'm going to start building this out for the youth and then for teens. And when I decided to do that for teens, I wanted to back up, because I thought, wait a second, I'm starting with propaganda, and there's some concepts that I want to start off with before I get into propaganda. And I thought, okay, I listed them down, and they were like, what is cowardice? What is bravery? What is responsibility? What does it mean to be happy? Why are we in pursuit of happiness?
And
Yeah,
that's what
those.
led to this series of educational topics, right?
Right. So as I was writing down a script or points that I wanted to cover, I realized that it was ballooning into a giant lesson or a giant video. So then
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, I got to break these down into smaller chunks. So I put those out there that you see, and the reason that I'm doing this is because I didn't see this being taught anywhere. These are the types of things that girls would learn from their mothers in the past, and boys would learn from their dads in the
Mm-hmm.
past, and their uncles and their grandpas. And you would
But since we've
understand,
been so
yeah.
deracinated and fractured as a people, as a culture, we're going to have to sort of fill in the gaps and steer us back towards a proper holistic education, right?
Yes. And the key word I think that you said there is holistic,
Mm-hmm.
because that's lacking, because everything's been so fractured. The Boy Scouts have been completely demolished.
And
Uh,
feminized.
and feminized, and people sit around on their butts playing video games, and
Mm-hmm.
they're getting fatter, and they don't understand their history, and they don't have an identity, and their parents are not imbuing the kids with identity and a sense of honor in their family name, and some kids don't know who their dads are, and it's just a giant freaking mess.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, this is the stuff that some teenagers, they need to have this, so I'm putting it on there. Now, someone might come along and say, what the hell is this? This is weird. This doesn't have anything to do with school. But Precisely. That's why it's on there, because it doesn't have anything to do with public education.
Right,
Remember
because
what I said. Yeah,
education is not what school has become.
right.
Education has kind of been lost and replaced by indoctrination centers.
Exactly. It's exactly right. And some states really want you to be indoctrinated, so they make it quite difficult to homeschool. Some other states are pretty okay with it. So depending on the state that a parent is in, it's going to be greater or lesser a pain in the butt. In some places like Sweden or Germany, they really want your kids to be indoctrinated. It's
Yeah.
almost impossible to pull them out.
I've heard it's really bad in Germany. There are a couple of Germans I talked to, and one of them said it's almost impossible to homeschool. Just all the things they expect you to do. It's just, it's like they've bureaucratically made it a nightmare just to dissuade parents from doing it.
Yeah, they have. And once again, those people that have done that, they need to face justice.
Yeah,
A
I
lot.
made a tweet about that recently, but we won't get into that.
No, you're right. Well, the way I look at it is, look, eventually people somewhere down the line are going to face justice. All of us are going to be dead at some point, and there's lots of really nasty, evil people that have lived on this planet that didn't face justice.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to worry about that. But whether or not our people reclaim their destiny soon, or if it takes a long time, the type of stuff that I'm trying to work on and the rest of the team is working on, this needs to be set up in place anyway,
Yeah,
regardless
exactly.
of when it
Yeah.
turns around. And so to get back to that Elite series, first of all, Elite, it's kind of a dorky name, but I needed to name it something. So I just thought,
Hmm.
well, that kind of fits. And it's stuff that you're not going to find in public education, because it's not so much indoctrination. I don't think of it as indoctrination, because I'm not trying to indoctrinate anyone, but I'm trying to say, look, here's some values that we used to hold dear to us. This
Hmm.
was important to us. And here's some values that have crept into society that so many people have now, like this cowardice that people seem to cling to. Like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
And corruption that I haven't done yet. Why is it like that? And so I had those basic ones, and then I wanted to get to stuff that's even more interesting to me, the more historical based, and political. And that's where I got into the egalitarianism, and then I got into the egalitarianism and World War II video. And what I'm doing is, okay, so you have
Hmm.
egalitarianism. Okay,
Yeah, I'm
so
glad I'm glad that you called
okay.
it egalitarianism, because this is exactly the core flaw of not just Marxism and communism, because they always knew egalitarianism was a lie. But in the Western world, especially the Anglosphere, egalitarianism has sort of replaced God in the source of where our values come from, and that's what's given us this sickness. And I think that calling it egalitarianism is a good neutral way to talk about the core of the problem without politicizing it towards one political camp or the other. Because, you don't want to get into the weeds about Democrat versus Republican or liberal versus conservative, because all that's just sort of set dressing around the core problem, which is egalitarianism as a concept being put on the highest pedestal of morality. I assume that's why you chose it, correct?
Yeah, exactly correct. And I think that egalitarianism is also an umbrella term which accompanies the communism, Marxism, feminism, equity, diversity, inclusion, like all of this crap, which which seeks to
Hmm.
replace the morality that our people used to have with this brand new set of morality, which says it's all different flavors of anti-whiteism.
Yeah. Hmm.
So,
Because
so
basically, when you teach children about egalitarianism, the core message there is your people are no longer important in the country that your ancestors built. You are required morally and you are obligated socially to give away your heritage and your future. That's really what egalitarianism is. That's why it's right to call it anti-whiteism or anti-Western.
yeah, I totally agree with that. And setting up the material for the teens for giving the positive identity, I haven't even got to that yet. I mean, this
Hmm.
stuff that's on here, to me, this is just the the predecessors for getting into the really important stuff that I haven't got to yet. Just because it takes a while and I don't have a whole lot of free time. I do this in my spare time.
Hmm.
So what I do with these videos is I'll have like a main sentence here, egalitarianism is a nice sounding concept that destroys the standards of Western civilization. So here's one thing of what it is. And then I put a few bullet points there, what we're going to cover in the video. The
Mm-hmm.
videos will be like 15 to 30 minutes long. And then at the end of the video, I'll have a little recap of some main points. So it's not set up necessarily like a lesson where here's exactly what we're going to learn, here's the objective, and now let's do an assessment at the end. But it's kind of, I set it up in the same way as if I was doing a lesson in a classroom. It's just there's not an assessment on it.
Yeah,
In
and I
each of
like
these,
this
okay,
video because of what it says right here about world powers destroyed Rhodesia by forcing egalitarianism upon it. And I think that this is a good example because just like in your World War II video, how you talked about extranational forces cajoling and tricking Poland into
mhm,
inflaming Germany because people in control of Britain didn't like the people in control of Germany. They and your video does a good job of that. And here you talk about how world powers that were interested in getting rid of Rhodesia because it was inherently pro-Western and based on older proper values of Western civilization. The modern world powers that put egalitarianism on a pedestal, they wanted to see Rhodesia go.
correct. Yeah, and I don't know what was in the minds of the rulers of Great Britain at the time and the other powers that were bringing pressure upon them, and also the organized Jay Walker community, but everyone had their hand in that. And the reason that I put Rhodesia on there is because I originally had egalitarianism and what happened to Russia with the so-called Russian Revolution, and I
Mhm.
had Rhodesia, and I had a couple other examples, and then I thought, wait a second, this video is like an hour and a half long. This is ridiculous. Like, I need to pick one and
Yeah.
go with it. And Rhodesia is an incredibly interesting story to me. I mean, from pre-founding to the founding of it and what it turned into and its
Mhm.
alliances with Britain, and then how almost the entire planet turned against them and they kept fighting for 12 years. They kept fighting a
Mhm.
bush war for 12 years. And it's a great example of a little group of white people that never felt white guilt. They never
Yep.
got guilted. They never bit into that shit. And it's their camaraderie is just incredible. But
Yep.
still, it's that these egalitarian forces all came and crunched them
Mhm.
all at once. And there is an analogy with that with Germany in World War II. It's not exactly the same, but there's a lot of analogies there, and that's
Definitely.
and that's
Definitely.
and as I became more aware very slowly over the years of some of these truths that led up to World War II, and I understand what was going on in the government in Britain, and I understood what was going on in the government in the United States. I thought, okay, this is starting to make a lot more sense now. Because some
Mhm.
of the things that they said when I was a little kid, it just never made any sense. It just went into the back of my head, and I thought that doesn't make any sense at all. Like everyone knows this, but I'll say this anyway. You have this country called Germany, and it went through its Weimar period, which is every bit as screwed up, if not more so, than what's happening to us right now.
Mhm.
And they pulled out of that. They had the best economy by far on the entire planet. They had the highest standard of living. And then, for no reason whatsoever, they decided to fight the rest of the planet by themselves. That never made any sense. So, somewhere
Yeah.
in there, the bullshit alarm goes off, but I wasn't old enough. Wasn't old enough yet. The internet hadn't existed yet, so I couldn't get to that information. Now I can. Now I can send this information to other kids and say, wait a second, what you've been told, it's not true. Doesn't matter how many movies you watch. Doesn't matter how many documentaries on Hitler you see on the History Channel.
Mhm.
It doesn't, you know, all of this crap. You've got to understand, and this is what I say to kids over and over, adults will lie to you. Just because someone is telling you something, it doesn't mean they're telling you the truth. So
Mhm.
what you've got to do, or what I recommend, is you have a little section of your brain or your mind that you set aside for storage. And when people say things to you, if you don't know if it's true or not, you just store it in that compartment there. Okay, and if you have to take a test on that in school, you can go ahead and give those answers if you want, but don't decide that it's true until you get a lot more information later on, and
Yeah.
then you can decide, are they lying to you or not? And then what I say is, they have been lying to you. They have been lying to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's why these things are screwed up. Now, one of the things that you said about 10 minutes ago is they replaced our morality with all this egalitarianism. So, a point that I keep reiterating throughout these videos, and I will do more so when I start focusing on the more positive aspects and building an identity, is that we already had a morality, and uh, our morality, our morals, we could argue were higher morals than any of the other races,
Mm-hmm.
and that was taken advantage of. And it was easy for other people to do that to us because they had a long time to do it. They had
Mm-hmm.
decades to do it. They had control of all the media. They had this brand new technology called television. And as people sat around and they were entertained, they were slowly given a little bit more poison and a little bit more poison and a little bit more poison. It's just like
Yep.
boiling the frog. There's lots of analogies.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're very, very far away from the way that our people used to be all along. And now the alarm bells are starting to go off in a lot of our people. But we look around and we're thinking like, what the hell happened? What's going on?
Yeah.
And you have these vague people say, oh, it's the Democrats. Look at them Democrat cities are burning down. Well, no, dipshit. It's not Democrat cities. You have to start, you
It's
have to
it's
have
the
an,
wide erasure of morals and
yes.
concepts of our people that are responsible for that, not just the Democratic Party.
Right. Yes, it goes deeper than that. The real problems go much deeper than that. And maybe as I'm ranting, I'm kind of going off all over the place, and I'm not staying focused here. But you have to, in my mind, when I teach, you have to get down to the basic fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
What is the truth? And then let's start from there. And then we can start layering on all these things that have happened, and we can see how our people have wandered down this path way, way, way off course, and they never knew they were off course. And they
Mm-hmm.
thought they were moral, and they were patting themselves on the back all the time about how moral they were, as they just turned over everything to
Mm-hmm.
non-whites and
Yeah.
just screwed up the future for us and all of our descendants after that point.
Yeah, I was thankful. I am thankful that I was sent to a private Christian school, K through fifth grade, and I didn't enter public school until middle school. And my parents and the family community that I'm from, they weren't pro Hitler. They weren't Hitler worshippers or anything, but they always gave me a nuanced view of World War II because going all the way back to the 1800s, my family lineage has bled and died for every cursed war that this stupid country's ever been in. And so many people in my family, they were very keen on the statist propaganda that was fed to us after 1945. So I got a very nuanced view of the American identity, the German identity, how those things have been skewed by war propaganda and anti-German hatred and denazification and things like that. Thankfully, I was raised with a very nuanced view of these things. So when I got to public school and had to listen to these lies and this poison, my family and church community had already inoculated me against a lot of it. So I'm very thankful to have that. And so this type of material is good for parents out there now who are dissident to the propaganda machine. This is going to help uh, this is going to help people get that kind of nuanced view that they will need to resist the mind poison as they go out into life and engage with other things,
Yeah, thank you.
because they'll
That's
have better fundamentals. Like you said, you'll start with the truth and talk about fundamentals of why we are who we are, where we came from, and why this new goddess of egalitarianism is sort of against all of that, and by default then is against our well-being as Western people. I assume I sort of that's the broad strokes of this, right?
yeah, that is correct. And while myself and the others on the team who's putting this together are doing that, what I'm trying to do is teach a maturity in thinking. And people say, critical thinking, but what I'm referring to as a maturity in thinking is try to look at history as more nuanced, not just like these were the good guys and these were the bad guys, because you're going to have some good and bad mixed in with everything. And
Mhm.
if you're going to actually understand the truth, You can't go into it with preconceived notions.
Yeah.
Now, talking about World War II is completely forbidden. If I'm saying, well, the truth of World War II is completely forbidden
Yeah.
in society, or because it's so anti-white.
Because
So
that basically became the Satan and the original sin in the anti-white narrative we have today. So you can't
right,
question it, right?
right, and to me, it was just some war. But what I came to realize is it was almost an excuse for pushing through this egalitarianism. It's like it just blasted the door wide open, and then here comes the egalitarianism train, just like running right through. And I thought, well, why is that? I've heard people say that, and I don't understand it.
Mhm.
So after I understood like all these things that I talked about before, these forces that were allied against Germany and Germany's allies, Germany had a lot of allies. They just weren't big and powerful. You know, France, UK, United States, Soviet Union. You had four world powers, four basic empires, all
Mhm.
coming down on Germany, freaking hard. It took four of them to bring Germany down. So when people say, now I'm going to go off on a tangent here, that National Socialism didn't work,
Mhm.
bullcrap. It did work. It worked
Yes.
extremely well. It worked so well it took four world empires to bring him down.
Indeed.
Now, what we need to understand there is, okay, why? Why did four world empires decide to descend upon Germany?
Mhm.
Soviet Union had their own reasons, but the other ones, the so-called Western allies, they had slightly different reasons as well. Okay, why did their governments decide to do that? Who was influenced? Who was in charge to make those decisions, and who influenced them? What were their beliefs? So then, you start going down the rabbit holes even more, and you go, okay, there was already outsiders in these countries already influencing these governments before World War II happened. So they get these tentacles are already in there. Plus, you
And
already
that's
have. Go
mhm,
ahead.
and that's what this is about, right? The, egalitarianism in World War II, right?
Exactly. Well, not this one. This one here is egalitarianism.
Oh,
So
okay.
egalitarianism and World War II is the next one, and I'll just put the link in here.
Sure.
And these are all on the same page.
Yeah. I've got that one pulled up right now. That's what I just
Okay.
pulled up for us,
All
yeah.
right. I just keep sending you the same links over and over and over.
Oh, that's okay. It's all good.
So, like I said, you're not allowed to talk about World War II. And also we're all aware of these splits on the dissident right, where you're either this neo-Nazi or you're an anti-neo-Nazi, or there's just arguments all over the place.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I need to be on any side of those arguments. I'm for the truth, and I'm for what works.
Mhm, me too.
So I understand exactly what Jason Kun is doing with change the morality, the framing, getting rid of the anti-white propaganda. It's a
Mhm.
very fundamental psychological tool that needs to be in place.
Indeed.
And to me, that is part of a proper education. A correct understanding of history is also another part of education.
Absolutely.
It's not that one just needs to stand all on its own. So I don't have a problem talking about World War II. I don't
Mhm.
have a problem talking about the National Socialist government, because they
Right.
were a valid government.
Mhm.
And the way that I was presenting that video about egalitarianism in World War II is that, look, Germany had a problem with some countries that had stolen part of its country away
Mhm.
after it got defeated at World War One. Part of that was this certain city in Poland, and if everyone was acting like adults, Poland would have granted access to Germany so they could have that.
You're talking about
But
the port city, Danzig, right?
yeah, Danzig,
Yeah.
yes, right. And I don't want to go into a World War II history
Sure.
lesson
Sure.
here, but to summarize it, this was a conflict just between Germany and Poland. Nobody else. Nobody else. But what I wanted to bring up is that Britain decided that no, we need to get involved in what you're doing. And France, we need to get involved in what you're doing. And the United States, we need to get involved in what you're doing. Our morality is more important than whatever you're doing. Now, we would take extreme offense if you got involved in our politics, but we think it's perfectly okay to stick our nose in what you're doing. And in fact, we're going to try to kill you. and we're
Yeah,
going to
that
develop.
was one of the
Yeah.
things I didn't like about the history that I got taught once I moved to public school, is they acted like that the American military war machine was almost like a messenger from God taking the gospel's truth around the world. And I was like, wait a minute. My family fought for this cursed military. They told me a very different story than this crap.
Yeah, well, see, that's another thing too that I get into with propaganda and corruption, and I'll use memes and that kind of stuff. Where one of the memes that I saw a couple of years ago it said that if your military is in another country fighting, you're not defending your country. You are the invader.
Yeah.
And this reframing needs to take place because this corruption is so deep and so prevalent that almost everything we hear is just 100% solid gold bullshit.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it needs to be
Absolutely.
broken apart piece by piece. And it's okay to say, yes, thank you for your service, you fought for your country, etc. And that's not the same thing as calling out the military industrial complex for what it
Right.
is. The United States is an empire. Our military gets deployed to benefit our corporations and to benefit Israel because Jews in the
Yep.
United States have a lot of money. And
Yep.
the people who control the levers of power, they want that Jewish money, and that's it.
Yep.
Now, for an adult, yes, you would go down into much more granularity. You could hash out the details. If you're introducing this topic for kids and teenagers, that's all you need to do.
Yeah.
People understand. Okay, money is good. I can buy things. These people who are in the levers of power, they're not good people. They're not moral people. They may be ambitious, they may be power hungry, and they want more power. They want more stuff for themselves. So, what I do is I teach kids, look, when you're a little kid, you know what the selfish kids act like. They might throw tantrums, they might try to take things from you. Um, if they get a new coat or new shoes, they're going to show it off. Imagine those really snotty kids that you don't like are now in control of your country. They're up in
Yep.
government. Okay. So I give them that analogy so they can start understanding these things. And for me, that's important because when I was a kid, I was very naive. I believed adults. I trusted adults. I thought that adults always told the truth. I thought that adults always
Yep.
did good things. And so it pisses me off personally when I realize how many of these, excuse my French, these goddamn bastards there are in
Yep.
positions of power. And it almost seems like psychopaths are rewarded. Psychopaths are the ones that are allowed to go into these positions of power because they can be bribed, they can be compromised, and they're okay with it. They'll join this club, this corruption. And that's
Yeah.
why when you see people go into the United States Congress, even though they act like they're good guys, they almost every single one of them just falls right in line.
Yeah, and that's another good thing to teach young people that have growing minds, teenagers, as they're coming into their own. When you broach the topic of the Jewish power bloc that has very strong in London and the East Coast of the United States, and then with media control, it's a good way to show them that how power works. Motivated minorities are able to get more done. An organized, motivated minority always takes power over a disenfranchised, fractured majority. And it doesn't necessarily have to be with Jews. There are many examples in Asia how different ethnic blocks and religious blocks have put pressure in India and China and Korea and Japan, etc., to get their way in the larger Asian landscape of political power. And so by using our backyard or Washington, D.C., you can point to those that are of the Zionist greatest ally persuasion, whether Jewish by blood or not. And you can say, this is a motivated, ideologically driven minority, and look at what they've been able to accomplish with such small numbers. And so that could open up a good conversation about how power on earth actually works.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Those types of concepts that you just described right there, those are the types of things that I attempt to put into lessons. So teenagers who are old enough to understand these concepts can say, "Oh, okay, I'm starting to understand some of how all of this stuff fits in together."
Mhm.
Because they're not going to learn that off freaking TikTok or
And they're definitely not going to learn it from
yeah,
Hollywood.
yeah, or any other place. So it's if they don't get it, if it doesn't come from somewhere, then it doesn't come to them at all. And a lot
Mhm.
of their parents, whether they're trying to do a good job or not, they're completely ignorant, or they don't care, or they're tired. So the disintegration that happened to one generation just continues and gets worse for the next generation.
Yeah. So, is there anything, since we're coming up on the hour mark, is there anything else specific you want to talk about your new material, or anything else you have planned you want to go over, or something you want me to showcase here?
How about this? Are we on the okay? Can you go to the end of the one on World War II?
Hmm.
It's right. It's a frame that's right before the last frame because usually I'll have a video at the end. So then there's a frame before that. So it's probably like maybe 7 or 8 minutes before the end of it there. It's kind of like a summarization of this video. And I thought that I would go ahead and address that since we're talking about it. More white people
Let me, I'm thumbing through the end here.
genocide.
Let's
Okay.
see. I'm going to mute it for now so we don't
Okay.
hear it. I'm going to thumb through it. And whenever you see the thing that you want to talk about.
All right. Yeah, it's a different screen. It might have old Thanos.
This here? Is this it?
Nope.
Okay.
No, right before this.
Oh, before this. Okay.
Yeah, that's a summarization.
So before
There it is.
this.
Okay. Right. So
Okay.
right there. So I'll just read this. Politicians cannot admit their governments were wrong about World War II because then they would have to admit Western civilization has been taken in the wrong direction. So that's kind of summarizes why I did this video right here, because World War II was both an excuse for the United States to champion egalitarianism everywhere, both inside of our country and force it on other countries as well.
Uh-huh.
Other countries that we had alliances with, or we give money to, or we wanted to control their governments, etc. And then we'll send in the CIA or the military if you don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also like the beginning of a brainwashing or an indoctrination for the American population. You know, once again, we were the good guys. We went over and we saved the poor Jews from, the 1,400 different horrible ways in which they were getting killed by
From
the
the six
Germans.
Guerrillian ovens. Yeah.
Right, because the Germans were fighting a war on multiple fronts and they really hated Jews for no reason. And instead of killing them, they decided to come up with this elaborate plot. Hey, let's put them in trains and we'll send them to these camps in Poland. But then we won't kill them there either. But then we'll trick them. Yeah.
It's like the 9/11 official narrative. Under any level of intelligence scrutiny, it just falls apart and makes no sense at all.
Right. I guess so. Another thing too, since you said that, is I want people to be able to decouple their thinking from their emotions.
Yes.
Because so many of our people,
and like you mentioned earlier, that's a product of feminization, because the masculine mind and the masculine education does what you're talking about. But since everything's become so feminized, emotions take the driver's seat.
Right. And so that's why propaganda needs to be taught, in that, look, when you're watching movies, you're going to identify with these main characters and they're treated badly, and there's a stirring music, and it might be black and white or grainy. And then these guys that are bad guys, they have these really sharp uniforms and they're all white people, and look how evil and horrible they are, and they're shooting people, and they're sending all of these Jews for hundreds of miles, and then they're tricking them right at the end, thinking that they're going to have a shower. Oh, look at that joke. Oh, got you guys. It's so asinine. It's laughable. It's asinine and childish.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm comfortable talking about it, even though it's forbidden in a lot of places. And it's actually it's required teaching in more and more states now, as the ADL puts pressure on the departments of education in different states. Just like the ADL trains the FBI, ADL puts pressure on police departments. So did you know, I'll just say this as an aside, in a lot of the police departments, if you're going to be a new police recruit and become a police officer, part of the curriculum is about the Holocaust.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
So, yeah. Yes. You're taught about the Holocaust before you become a police officer. That is how much control this outside group has over our country.
And don't even get me started on forced circumcisions in the United States. I've been against that for decades. I hate that shit.
You and me both. So anyway, this series right here is, I guess you could say, is more controversial because it strays further away from the accepted indoctrination that you get in public schools.
Hmm.
But I wanted this material to be there somewhere so people had access to it. And there's probably, only a few hundred parents that know about it now, but hopefully over time,
Hmm.
uh, the word of mouth can spread on this, and it's going to be much more robust. There's going to be many more videos on here. This is probably only like a quarter of what I'm going to have on this page. And then there's
Okay.
also going to be one that I'm going to do for youth. It's just going to take 1 or 2 years to get all of that, put in place because I'm doing other things as well.
Well, that's
So,
fantastic. Is there
uh,
anything else here in this video you want me to thumb to, or are we done
no,
with
no,
this?
that's
Okay.
good. So
Okay.
what we could do is I could do a brief run through of the School of the West in general,
Okay.
an overall talk on the website for anyone who may be unfamiliar with it.
All right. Then I'm going to bring back up the homepage here, and we'll get started. Then
Okay.
we can navigate to wherever you want me to take us.
Okay. Well, if you, well, first of all, right up there at the top in the middle, it says homeschooling at that top menu. I will
Uh-huh.
point that out. So this is the page that I put on a few months ago, and it has information specifically for parents who are homeschooling their kids. I don't know if those, can you go over that, move the cursor back and forth in that box that's underneath that photograph? Because my website
Yeah, there we go.
theme got screwed up a little bit. Okay, I need to fix that. It's not supposed to look, it's not supposed to be invisible till you come over there. But
Uh-oh. Yeah, we'll need to
the
fix that.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's okay. I had an update to the site and it just broke some things. So I fixed some stuff and I'll keep fixing it. But anyway, the top section there's some state regulations. As parents ask about what do I need to do in certain states, like I mentioned before, every state is different. Some states make the information easy to access. Some states make it difficult to access. They make you jump through a lot of hoops. So there's information on different states on how you start the homeschooling process legally. I have a
Hmm.
sample curriculum in there. I have some homeschooling resources down at the bottom, and I also have a few forms in there that you can, like right there, you can fill that out and send that into your state to start the process. So
Nice.
so there is a homeschooling page. It's not the greatest, but at least it's a start. And yes, if you can go back to the homepage of the site,
Certainly.
okay, and we'll just scroll down to where the subjects are, so I can just point out in for everyone what's there in the subjects. Okay, so the white well-being section, that's the stuff that's completely outside of the normal indoctrination that you get in public schools.
Okay.
That's where those videos were that we were looking at earlier, and there's information for youth, etc., and
Okay.
videos about propaganda. And I'm also going to be using, well, I have used some of Devin Stack's material. So
Oh, I can see why. He makes very good content.
right, he makes very good content. It's aimed for adults, and he likes to drop the F-bomb continuously throughout his stuff that he doesn't notice that he does that. So I've
Well,
used
I
some of
talk
his.
like a sailor, so I don't even notice that. But yeah, if you're
Okay.
going to be an
Well,
educator, you should probably
right.
clean that up a bit.
Right. So when you're a teacher, when you're a teacher, you think about you have to, you're responsible for all of this stuff that goes to kids. You can't just
Right.
talk like people talk to adults. So over time, I'm going to take some more of his stuff and I'll be putting it in that section as well because he exposes this propaganda because of his skills and his background that he had in both news and entertainment. So all that's in the white well-being. Language arts, these are just elementary ELA lessons for now. If you click on the drop down under history and culture, there's a little bit of variety in that section. And Lovely Porridge, who I saw him here in the chat, he
Hmm.
started that section there of Meet Your People for little
Yeah,
kids.
I remember that. Yeah, I like
Okay.
his Meet the People series. That was good.
Yeah, it's yeah, he needs to quit being so lazy and make some more of those. Is what we're trying to
You hear
get
that,
at
buddy?
here.
We're calling you out. Make some more videos.
That's right. One of the things that's newer there too is the Southern history. There is a retired teacher from North Carolina. He's put together a big series on the background of Southern history, and then he's also doing one on the War for Southern Independence. He's working
That's
on that right
wonderful
now.
because I'm Southern myself and I
Yep.
love this. Let's have a look.
Right.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
and he's got a reading list of like 30 books or so that he went over that he put together and he created his own series where it's part lecture and part reading on the part of the student.
Cool.
So I went through and I grabbed all of his stuff with his permission, and we replicated that here on this page. And then next year, when he does, this is all pre War for Southern Independence, and then when he does that one on the war, there'll be another page. There'll be another course, and this will take kids about a year to go through. There's a lot of
I saw it was
information
like
there.
50 lessons. There's a lot there.
Yeah, and he goes through quite a bit. So anyway, that's the history and culture, and I consider history and culture to be intertwined. That's why I put that in one section. And then we have electronics, we have math, we have science, which is going to cover engineering. And then we have one on self-sufficiency, which just basically started up. So when people send in stuff for cooking, fishing, hunting, building stuff, repairs, auto repairs, etc.
Oh, I
That's
like
going to
that
go in
picture of
there.
the Amish there. That's nice. That's good.
Yeah, they're working. They're fairly self-sufficient. If they're not
Based.
self-sufficient, I don't know who is.
The Amish are based in Ted pilled.
yes, they are. Yeah, they're not messing around. So as more material is
Hey, look,
created
there's
by
Jared George and Fornell. We played a Jared George song to start the stream today.
Yeah, actually, I think that song is in that list there. I haven't updated that list in these songs in, I don't know, 8 months or whatever. But as I find more stuff as it matriculates, I'll stick it on there. I change out this little content on the homepage from time to time, so people have something different to look at.
Cool.
But for people that are just wondering what is the tenor of the site, what are the morals of the site, they can look at these things and get a little bit of a feel for the spirit of what is going on.
This is a good video. The meaning of hail. That's a good one. I've seen that
it's
one.
great.
It's
And
a good one.
yeah, and I love the one on the lion too. It's extremely masculine.
I've not seen that one. I'll check that out.
It's pretty good. That's one of my favorites. So what was the other thing? Yeah, there may be someone right now who's also working on an introductory lesson on Greek philosophers. And if that's done in a robust manner, I will add another section on there under the 9 subjects that we have. So
now I see you have some Asher logos here. Asher logos. He is one of the first content creators I discovered when I was looking for healthy, high IQ, pro Western content. I discovered a stream series of his that I learned a lot from.
Yeah, he's pretty good. And I first heard of Asha Logos when back when the White Art Collective and Jason and Jared did that last message to Western Kind.
Yeah, I remember that
video, and he won that contest. He's pretty
awesome.
damn good at he's really good at making videos. So he had to have that on there, and Daughter of Albion did a good job working with that video right there. And so one's about the U.S., one's about the UK. And both of those guys, Daughter of Albion, Asha Logos, they're good with me putting the videos on there.
Good. I would assume they would be. I'm putting the link to the website schoolofthewest.world. I'm putting that in the chat right now. I highly recommend, if you're an adult, if you are old, if you're young, doesn't matter. You will find good educational material here for you. And this is excellent material for your children or anyone else that you think needs to learn from it as well. Excuse me. And now that we're towards the end of the interview, is there any closing thoughts or anything else you want to go over, or shall we turn to the chat and get some of their questions answered before we head out?
No, I think I've covered everything. I've talked long enough on that. If
Okay.
anyone's got more questions, then we can entertain
Well,
that.
we'll start like usual. We'll start with the paid questions for people that donate, and then we will look into. Let's see. I'm going to refresh Entropy to make sure I'm not missing anything over there. Okay, nothing on Entropy yet, but you still have a few minutes to get your questions and comments over on Entropy if you want to financially support me with asking a question. We don't have any tips on Subscribestar. I'm going to refresh PayPal because it logs me out every 2 minutes. All right, we'll see what's kicking over there. We have 2 things to get to over on Cash App before we bounce out of here. Okay, nothing new on PayPal either. And I don't have any hyper chats on Odyssey and no rants on Rumble. So before we get to the active chat questions, we'll see what White Student Transmission has to say. For $5 US, thank you so much, brother. He says, great stream, family. He says, fam. I appreciate it. I do my best to help the community grow and to get people's eyes and ears on the things that I think are important. And Brant Dangerous School of the West is one of the most important and valuable things I have come across in my long journey. Next up, we have Machi. Machi for $5. This is probably Machiavelli sucks to go because I see him in the chat. So this is probably him. Machiavelli sucks to go for $5 says, well, well, well. I don't know what that's in reference to, but thank you so much for the financial support, brother. I appreciate you being here and gifting the chat. So what I'm going to do now for you, Brant, is I saw some questions in the chat that I thought we could talk about a bit before we get out of here today. Let's see.
Oh, I have to say, while you're looking at that, I have to
Sure.
thank White Student Transmission. I just got an email from individuals that he sent my way that are doing some educational work, and there's a possibility that that group and School of the West will work together jointly. They're making
What what two
some.
things? Sorry, I was reading chat and my brain missed the first part of that. Who are you working with?
Well, I don't recall exactly what their name is.
Oh, okay.
They are creating some, at least what they sent me. They're creating some educational material, which is like biographies on some of our historical figures, and it's
Ooh,
so it's both like a mini lesson and then an assessment at the end of that. So perhaps you know they and the School of the West can work together. It's always nice to hear from people who have taken an initiative to create the type of material that they know needs to be out there, and
yeah,
then they cross paths with someone else, so we can work
indeed.
together.
The first thing I wanted to tell you from chat was a joke from one of the regulars in the White Well-being community, Victorian time traveler, who I've met in person, by the way. He's a nice guy. He
Hmm.
says, "Do you have an osteology course for School of the West? And if you don't, or if you ever do, you could name it Skull of the West."
Okay, so I've got to show my ignorance here with the osteology. What the heck does that mean?
Osteo is a Latin root for bones. So if you ever teach a course about
Oh, yes.
bone growth and bone development, you could call it Skull of the West.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down. Skull of the West, as in
That was from Victorian
osteo.
Time Traveler. Thank you, Vic. That was pretty funny. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Hey, there's Elaine Sabatino. Hello, Elaine.
Hey, Elaine, good to see you here. I see a lot of regulars here. That's good. Let's see here. A simple question from our friend Jubilation Media. He says, Brant, what would you consider to be the purpose of education? I think that's a good question. If you could summarize it, what would you say the purpose of education is?
Well, I think I wrote something in the chat to Mr. Porridge there. Uh,
Oh,
and again, I'm going to go back to what I said a few minutes into our discussion today. It depends upon who's defining the education, and like real education. Let's pretend that there's no public education at all. There's no schools. The real purpose of education, as far as I'm concerned, is preparing a child to have all of the skills and the knowledge they need to make decent decisions by the time they become an adult. And as we have more and more complex societies and more technology in every facets of our lives, and as the world is a year older every year, there's more information for kids to know. So they're being prepared in that vein, and also socially, so they have the right skills as they become adults. Now, if you grew up in a village 500 years ago, you don't need to go to school. You don't need to learn all this stuff. You need to learn how
yeah,
to build a log cabin and milk a cow and that kind of stuff.
right.
Now, purpose of education, as far as the government is concerned, again, like I said, some basic skills so they can go into the workforce, and also indoctrination so that they believe the right things.
Yeah, yeah. We have another question from Jubilation Media. He asks, have you encountered homeschools that are notably anti-white, and can homeschools be just as bad as public schools from your experience?
I haven't encountered any that are anti-white. I haven't worked with homeschooling co-ops. I've worked with some families that belong to some co-ops, and there's nothing that I've seen that is anti-white.
Oh, good.
Sometimes the schools will, or the co-ops or the families, they will be more strongly sided with so-called paganism or Christianity, or they
Yeah.
might have some religious beliefs that would split off from other members of Western kind, but nothing anti-white.
Okay. Such is life, by the way. We're not all the same. Such is
Yeah.
life. All right. And by the way, people that that are not gross degenerates, who are, responsible, traditional-minded pagans, I have as friends. I like the Asatru community that I've met. So just because I was raised Christian and went to a Christian school, I don't disparage or look down on those of our people who are of a different religious persuasion. I'm not like that, just so you guys know.
Yeah, and I just want to say I support everyone. School of the West is foundational for all of Western kind, except for Australians. I mean, I just cannot stand Australians, and that's one of the things that we're going to have to clean up on this planet if we're going to ever move forward.
You're just taking a shot at Jubilation Media, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I do that all the time.
Yeah, he's a good sport. I like him a lot. He's fun. He's fun.
And Lockie in the
Oh,
chat.
Lockie's
Lockie
here
Linder
too.
was
I
in
didn't
there.
notice. Okay, cool.
Well, I didn't see him in here, but whenever I see him, I give him a hard time. Just for that, just because I like Australians. That's why.
Oh, me too. Me too. One of my best Australian friends tells me a lot about what's going on in Australia, and definitely there's a lot of stuff we got to clean up down under too.
Yeah, this anti-white mind virus, it's hitting all of us everywhere.
Oh yeah, it's bad.
I'm sure it's just a coincidence that it started in the 1960s everywhere at the same time.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
A coincidence.
What a coincidence.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. I'm not seeing any other direct questions for you that my eyes are noticing. I don't want to miss anyone while I've got you here. So I'm almost to the bottom of chat of the YouTube feed. Not a lot of active chat in the other stream places right now.
I'm going to answer one thing for Machiavelli, sir.
Okay, I'm back down to the bottom now here. Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like just people talking back and forth to each other, and I don't see any direct questions to you. So what we're going to do then is I'm going to check entropy. And okay, still nothing on entropy. So we're probably clear now. So you could go ahead and tell us your closing thoughts and any closing things you would like to say before we say our goodbyes. Anything besides obviously inviting people to check out and to share School of the West. I, of course, have posted this all over social media. You can find the link to School of the West in the description of this stream, wherever you're listening to it. So, Brant, what would you like to share with us today before we head out?
Okay, well, I'll say a couple of things. The condition or the material that's on the site right now is just a fraction of what it's going to be. I have in my mind what it needs to be, and it's in its infancy. And also, if there's people who have some talents or some skills or some knowledge that they would want to share with our kids across the planet, then contact me, and we'll see if you would like to create some lessons, either written material, videos with art lessons, or here's how to bake some things, here's how you change the tire on your bicycle, here's how you raise some chickens, here's how you make grandma's apple
here's how
pie,
you change oil in a car, here's how you changed oil in a tractor, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Or here's how you build a motor, or whatever it is. These skills that we used to have as people that were naturally passed down, that they're not passed down anymore because we live in this artificial, crappy society. Unless you live in a rural area and you have chores where you take care of animals and you work on vehicles and that kind of stuff. So what I'm saying is, if someone, either yourself or someone who might have some information, skills that they can share, send me an email. And my email is at the bottom of every page on the School of the West. If you scroll down, people will see it there. And
is it at the bottom?
Type it in here. Yeah, except.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, contact schoolofthewest.world.
Yeah, it's schoolofthewest.world. Yeah. Yeah, and then because it's a team effort, and myself and everyone else, we're all volunteer. We do it because it needs to be done. We do it in our spare time as we're able to work on it, because it's someone's got to do it. We're at the point now in our history, and I think we all understand it. If you're looking around for someone to save you, you might as well look in the mirror, because the people who are in power are absolute bastards, and they are not going to help. So we've got to do it.
I say that all the time. We have no heroes left. It falls on us and our shoulders. We have to be the heroes for our people now, to the best of our ability.
Right on.
Well, thank you, Brant, for being here today. Thank you for all of your work. This is amazing work, and I can't laud you enough for this. Thank you so much. Reach out to Brant if you have ways to help him. And by all means, take this website, share it to everyone that you can. Anyone you know who has children, maybe you have friends, you should pressure them into getting their kids out of public school. Help Brant grow, get as many eyes on this as you can. And remember, guys, this evil can't last forever. There's no way that it can. What is up to us, me and you, we're plebs. Everybody listening to this is a pleb. You're not going to be able to change government. You're not going to be able to wave your magic wand and undo all the damage that's done in the last God knows how many years. But what you can do is make wise, healthy choices for yourself and for the people in your immediate area, your family, your children, your community. It starts with communities like ours. That's how we're going to have a future worth living, is we have to have 1,000 little Rhodesias that they can't take from us. So get to building now. That's my advice for everybody. So we're going to go ahead and stop sharing this. Brant Danger, thank you for being here today, my friend. We will definitely do this again in the future, and I wish you and what you're building the best. And thank you for everyone being here in the chat. Thank you for the constant support, and thank you to those of you who financially support, whether monthly or through your paid donations. I do deeply appreciate it. Tomorrow night, at the usual time on my channel, will be the 100th episode of Discordant Dragons. It's going to be a little different from usual, and I'm going to have on about a dozen people that have been regulars on the stream over the years. And we're just going to have a fun celebration tomorrow night, look at some dragons, talk about some fun news, and of course, look at a whole bunch of fun memes and pictures and videos and stuff tomorrow night. It'll be a fun white pilling event, 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. So love yourself, love your family, love your people, and do everything you can. Speak the truth to all who have the ears to hear it. Good night, Brant. Good night, those of you who are here live, and good night to those of you who are listening to this later.
Good night, everybody.